Hey everyone, Mark Hespin here. Subscribe at Mark Hespin on the YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter/X, Instagram at Mark Hespin, MarkHespen. And as always, follow the show on the Mark KHMO on Facebook. We're live and local every Saturday, 9:05 sharp on News Talk 1070 KHMO and the free KHMO app. It is time for my post-week 10 power rankings. I almost did this yesterday. Here we are on Wednesday, November 15th. I almost did this yesterday. Glad I didn't, because I just eliminated the Browns from the power rankings. Updated them. I had the Browns on, then I pulled the Browns off with the Deshaun Watson news this morning. We'll get into the Deshaun Watson surgery and out for the year. I'll talk about that after the power rankings. So let's start with it. Oh, turn that off. Let's get into it. We'll start at 10, work our way to the top. Definitely some shakeups in the power rankings here, and some teams not on the power rankings I think will upset some people. And then we'll talk Deshaun Watson and why I think the Browns are in a world of trouble. I mean, they've already been in a world of trouble, but even more so. Let's jump into it. At number 10 this week, the Jags. They sneak in because the Browns got kicked out. Listen, the Jags, to me, why I had them out, I think is just like, you get punched in the mouth, embarrassed like that at home against a team that had all the pressure on them to win in San Francisco. It was a really, really disappointing performance. I still think the Jags are capable of sneaking into an AFC Championship game. Maybe, but after a loss like that, I just question everything with Jacksonville. They have the schedule in front of them to make it up to us. They have some big games coming on up. They have a lot of easy wins on the schedule, it still looks like. This is a team that's going to be hanging around, but I lost a ton of faith in them as far as long term. And Trevor Lawrence, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Justin Fields hasn't played for 4.5 games, and he has more touchdown passes than Trevor Lawrence. That's a problem. Like, that's a real problem for Jacksonville. They've got to get that offense going and producing, because the defense just isn't good enough to keep them in games. They have to outscore people, and right now, they ain't scoring nothing. The Steelers go to number 9 in the power rankings. They move up a spot from last week. What can you say about the Steelers? Again, I think it's a lot of fool's gold. I don't think the Steelers are a legitimate AFC championship game contender. But if you look at the Steelers' schedule, they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, let's face it, if they win the games they're supposed to win down the stretch, they're probably going to make the playoffs. They're already at 6 wins. 10 wins, I think, is going to get you in the AFC. They have definitely 4 winnable games on their schedule now, especially with the Deshaun Watson, the Brown news. I really like the Steelers this week. I like the Steelers going forward to keep winning the way they're winning. Does that mean they're going to compete in the playoffs? No, probably not. I would imagine a first-round wild card exit where they actually get exposed because their offense can't score. But if you are about consistency and keeping your never having a losing season going, Mike Tomlin, congrats. You've done it again, it looks like, this year. Texans at number 8, new to the power rankings this week. They were in it a couple weeks ago. Then I moved them out after the Carolina Panthers loss, and they're back in it. Let's just say this about the Texans. Right now, they have one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league playing. And so if you have a top 10 quarterback playing like a top 10 quarterback, you're going to be in the power rankings. They're winning games. The Texans also are a team. Look at their schedule. It's hard to see the Texans not getting to 10 wins with the schedule they have and with how they've been playing. Now, they've had some letdowns. He is a rookie. Things can come off the rails quickly, obviously. But if you put them on the trajectory of the way they've been playing offensively especially, this Texans team is going to end up as a 10-win team and maybe sneaking to the playoffs. And credit to C.J. Stroud. He's doing something that we haven't seen since Andrew Luck. I mean, he is doing Andrew Luck. Worst to playoffs. That's the trajectory they're on. The Colts were the worst team. Andrew Luck came in 11-5, 11-5, 11-5 with the AFC Championship game. CJ Stroud, I didn't think he'd be this good. I predicted him to be the best quarterback in this draft. I didn't think he'd be this good. And he's been very impressive, very, very impressive. The Texans at 8 and looking to move up the power rankings. Dolphins, they fall a spot to the number 7 spot in the power rankings. You know, for the Dolphins, again, it's just about the fact that I need to see them win a game against a really good team. They need to beat a team that is a playoff caliber team. They need to beat them. I don't care if it's at home, if it's on the road, but they just need to beat them and beat them handily. Play a 4 quarters football game where they win it wire to wire against a really good team, and I'd feel way better about the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins right now have a better chance than the Texans, the Steelers, the Jags to actually make it farther in the playoffs. So that's why I have them above those teams. That's where the ranking is coming in, because they have an offense that is electric and can score. And you never know. All it takes is any given Sunday, especially in the playoffs. If you can score points, you can win a football game. The Dolphins can definitely do that. They are at 7. Bengals, they fall a couple spots to number 6. I'm not panicking on the Bengals yet. The problem with the Bengals is because they got off to such a slow start, their margin is so razor thin. They can't afford losses like that to the Texans, and they did. It was on the road. They're beat up, and now they have a giant game tomorrow night against the Ravens. It is a can't lose for the Ravens. It's a must win for the Bengals. That makes sense? It's a must win for the Bengals. And if you're the Ravens, it's not a must win, but it feels like it's a can't lose. And that's why the Ravens are at 5. These two teams right now are mirroring each other. The Ravens, I like a lot. I mean, last week I was singing their praises. They were number 3. I was talking about them being an absolute Super Bowl contender. I still feel that way. The problem is what I liked about the Ravens last week, and I said, hey, Lamar Jackson hasn't had to put on the cape. Lamar Jackson hasn't had to be Superman. Well, where was Superman last week? They needed him to be Superman, and he was nowhere to be found. So I still like that the Ravens can win without Lamar Jackson being Superman. But I'd like to see Superman. Where is he? Come on, Lamar. You are playing. We talked about Trevor Lawrence's numbers. Lamar Jackson is the farthest thing from an MVP right now, despite his team being the 2nd seed in the AFC. That's a concern. He needs to start playing better. He's got great weapons in Andrews and OBJ and Zay Flowers. They have weapons. You got to start putting up the numbers, and you got to get drives together, not throw costly interceptions. Concern for the Ravens at 5 and the Bengals at 6. Now the top 4. These are teams I feel really, really strong about. Really strong about. The Niners, they move up 6 spots. They're the big movers, back to the number 4 spot. Listen, the Niners, I said it last week, they had all the pressure going into that game. The pressure was on the Niners to beat the Jags on the road. And not only did they beat the Jags, they dismantled the Jaguars. I mean, it was an embarrassing. They pantsed the Jaguars in front of their school crush. I mean, that's how embarrassing that loss was for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was a dominating win for the 49ers. Listen, we now know what the 49ers are. When they are healthy, Brock Purdy can lead them to a Super Bowl. But if they're going to miss anyone down the stretch, if Trent Williams has to miss time again, if Debo has to miss time again, do we trust them? That's why they're at 4, not at 2, 1, or 3. There's still just that little bit of an inkling of caution in my brain about Brock Purdy and the Niners, if in case they do face some injuries here down the stretch. Lions at number 3. They move back up 3 spots to number 3. Listen, the Lions defense is really disappointing me over the last couple of weeks, but offensively, man, they have such an identity. They're such an offensive line juggernaut. And right now, the Lions ahead of them, their schedule, they play the Bears twice coming on up. They have a chance to really stack wins and maybe end up with the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, depending on what the Eagles do over the next couple of weeks as the Eagles' schedule gets difficult. If the Lions are hosting home playoff games in Ford Field for the first time, ever, this crowd's going to be insane. And the Lions will be a real threat to make it to a Super Bowl if they're hosting an NFC Championship game at Ford Field with that offensive line, that run game, and Jared Goff not turning the ball over, playing really solid football. Chiefs at number 2. Listen, for the Chiefs, to me, it still goes back to the wide receiver play and where can they find consistency. Overall, though, I love this team. Patrick Mahomes has not been playing at an MVP level, but he's the one guy I still feel like, don't worry about him. He will make the plays. He won't turn the ball over. He'll put his team into positions to win games as opposed to Josh Allen and putting his team into positions to lose games. And number 1, Eagles, Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Philly's at number 1 again. Listen, you know how I feel about Philly. Love the offensive line, love the defensive line, love Jalen Hurts, love the weapons. And they are in an NFC conference right now that seems like it's theirs for the taking. Absolutely. They got a tough schedule. Monday night's going to determine a lot. Number 1 versus 2 are going to play each other. What happens next week, we'll check on in. No Cowboys, no Bills, no Seahawks in the power rankings. I mean, listen, the Bills, they have the opportunity to get back in there. They have one of the top 6 quarterbacks in the NFL. I love Josh Allen a lot. So they just got to figure it out, and they got to find a way to win games. They have plenty of opportunities coming on up. For the Cowboys, I just don't buy them. I don't buy them. I don't buy them at all. I don't think they're going to make an NFC Championship game, so why waste a spot in the power rankings with the Cowboys? And for the Seahawks, same thing. The Seahawks are fun. They're more fun than the Cowboys, in my opinion. I like watching them more because it's not Dak and it's not Mike McCarthy and his face just like Mike McCarthy. I don't know what's going on. And so all those teams just on the outside looking in. Let's talk to Deshaun Watson really quickly with the Cleveland Browns, obviously missing the rest of the season. The Browns were at 7 in my power rankings and certainly trending upwards before this news. I'll say this. The Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson will now never make it, in my opinion. Not only will they not make it to a Super Bowl, I don't think they'll ever win their division or make it to an AFC Championship game now with Deshaun Watson. Here's why. Shoulder surgery is not great for an aging quarterback who relies mainly on athleticism anyways and has never been historically accurate. And number two, the way that Deshaun Watson's contract is set up, the chances for Cleveland to win and to win big were last year and this year. That was it. They had the win now roster. They weren't paying all the dudes everything. And Deshaun Watson was getting, remember that really embarrassing $1 million last year in 2022? He was only making $19 million this year. $63 million guaranteed you have to pay Deshaun Watson in 2024, 2025, and 2026. Sorry, Browns fans. You're not only not winning your division with Deshaun Watson, I don't know if you'll ever win a playoff game with Deshaun Watson with now what you have to pay him. Last year and this year were your chances to win. Last year he played like poop down the stretch, couldn't lead you to the playoffs. And this year, injuries, not great play, and now the contract really becomes a massive penalty. Looks like Justin Fields is going to go for the Chicago Bears. Love to see that. Big Thursday night football game. I may do a quick video recap after the Thursday night game as well, or just save it all for Saturday on the show. Tune in Saturday morning on the Mark KHMO on News Talk 1070. Download the KHMO app. Follow the show on the Mark KHMO on Facebook. Subscribe at Mark Hespin here on the YouTube. Follow me on Twitter /X or on Instagram at Mark Hespin. And we'll talk to you soon.